Hello there and welcome to this tutorial for Focal Point Digital. And today we're going to be working with these very popular Santa backdrops. Here we have Santa eating a cookie, and we have this sweet little darling that we're going to Photoshop into this image and make something special for her parents for Christmas time. So first things first, I say this during every tutorial, we need to look for the direction of light before we get started. And we do that so that we can make the most believable composites. And a little hack to do so is to just look for the shadows in the backdrop. So I'm seeing a shadow on this side of the shelf, I'm seeing a shadow off the back of Santa's leg, and I'm seeing a shadow here off the presents, and that leads me to believe that the direction of light is coming from over here. That's top and right. And so what I've done to create this backdrop, or to create this composite, pardon me, was to photograph this little lady on a similar wood background. And I've done that for a couple of different reasons, but primarily so that the color casting would be believable. I could see where the shadows would lie in this backdrop so that I can make it look realistic. And as well, I've matched the direction of light. So you can see here, there's a highlight on her cheek and there's some shadowing over here. And I have photographed from top and right, and I flagged my light to about 90 degrees. So in order to get started, I'm just going to zoom into her image. I'm just dragging right on my zoom magnifying glass. That's the shortcut, so you don't have to go up and click. You can just click down and drag right. And if you want to zoom out, you click down and drag left. So I'm going to use the quick selection tool here, and I'm just going to use the right bracket key to increase my brush size and then select around her. She got some crazy hairs, which I really like. Super adorable. I have selected too much, so I'm going to click Alt to subtract part of that selection. And then back to the plus sign. And again, I've got too much here. Okay, now I'm going to click Select and Mask, and I'm on this tool, and I'm going to run it along the edges just to refine this selection. And depending upon the contrast between your subject and the background, this can be very, very precise, and sometimes it can be a bit of a mess. I really like it for hair, especially these kind of crazy hairs. You don't want to smooth that out too much because it will look fake when you get it into the backdrop. So using this quick selection will help you pick up that hair and have a bit of opacity through the hair. And it just makes it look a little bit more realistic. Okay, so for the parts that we didn't pick up with this selection, we can always add back in because we are using a layer mask. So we're going to output to new layer with layer mask. And I'm now going to grab my subject and drag her into this backdrop. As you can see, she is way too big, and that's okay because I'm just going to adjust her size. So in order to do that, I'm going to go Control T and then hit the Shift key and pull down this corner to maintain her aspect ratio so that she doesn't go all wonky. If you don't hold that down, then you can get some pretty weird looking humans. So you want to hold down that corner to make sure it locks the aspect ratio. Okay, now it's time to decide how big she should be in relation to this Santa. So I like to use the faces to sort of make this decision. And also I know the age of this baby. She's about 8 months. So she may come right up to Santa's knee there, and that seems like a good size. And her face isn't bigger than Santa's, and so that also gives me an indication that I'm getting close to the right size. I might make her a tiny bit smaller, but I don't want her lost in this image either. I'm also going to rotate her a little bit just so that her eyeline is just a little bit more perfect. If you're wondering how I got her looking up, I actually had her parents standing off the edge of the backdrop holding something that held her interest. So I'm thinking I like this size. She might be a tiny bit big. All right, let's just bring it down a tiny bit. All right. There are a few different ways to do the shadowing here, and I may have a bit of an unconventional way to do the shadows. This is the way that I like to do it. Certainly there's no right or wrong way to do things in Photoshop. You can figure out your own techniques. There's about 14 ways to skin every single cat in Photoshop, and this is a technique I've developed. First things first though, I'm just going to look and make sure that the quick selection picked everything up, and I see that there's a bit of a missing piece here on her leg, so I've gone over to her layer mask. I'm on the white brush and I'm just going to brush in. I'm brushing in where quick selection didn't quite pick everything up. I'm also brushing in that shadow that existed in the original image, and the reason I'm doing that, and the reason I can do that and have it believable, is that I have shot on a very similar backdrop to this one, and that allows me to cheat that a little bit, and that makes your editing life a lot easier. So I'm just gonna sneak in some of those shadows. And just make sure I have all the details of her lovely face, and see the quick selection picked up her hair, and I just love that. I love that it looks realistic. Okay, I'm going to flip over to the black brush and just remove a little bit of this haloing here. And over to, that's using the X key just to flip between those brushes so you don't have to go over there. Okay, let's back out so we can see this. And as you can see, those shadows are really harsh in comparison to the lightness of this wood. So what I'm going to do, I am going to duplicate the background layer with Santa in it. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and then add a layer mask. That's hiding everything. Then I'm going to go to multiply in the blend mode. I'm going to head on over here to the brush tool, right bracket key to increase my brush size. I'm going to turn my opacity down to about 40, flow down to about 40, and then I'm going to build in the shadows that I think are appropriate with this subject, knowing again that the light is coming from the top and the right. So I'm working on this background where Santa is. And as I said, it was just a little bit bright there. You can go ahead and carry some of that shadowing over. I'm going to lower the brush. There would be a bit of a harder shadow right under her foot, so I'm going to build that up right under her foot. And same thing here. And there'd be more shadow under her dress. And probably a little bit heavier shadow under her hand. Okay. She would also cast a shadow on this wall, but it wouldn't be a harsh shadow. So I'm going to make a big soft brush here and just 1 click, 2 clicks. And I think I like the way that's looking. So, oops, back to the history brush. Let's zoom out again and see how we're doing here. I'm pretty happy with that, but what I can immediately tell, this is a bit harsh where I've used the shadows from the original backdrop, and I'm going to go to her layer and flip over to the black brush tool and lower my brush size, and I'm just going to, at 40%, I'm just going to run around the contact points and soften those shadows a bit, because they just don't look all that realistic. Flip back over to the white brush because I removed a little too much there. And I'm seeing a little piece here. I believe that's on the background. No, it's actually on her layer. It's coming off of her cheek. So I'm going to remove that with the black brush. X to flip over. Is that on her layer? This is the fun part of Photoshop. Sometimes you're hunting for things. That's okay. Okay. I'm liking how this is looking, but my eye is immediately drawn to how hard this shadow is, so I'm just going to remove it a little bit more. I'm going to come on in here, remove this as well. And just lower the size of my brush and come in here and remove that landing shadow. I'm going to add a little bit back. So in order to do that, I'm just increasing my brush size. And sometimes you'll add and you'll remove, and it's really just a little gentle massaging of what you think works and what is pleasing to your eye. I would like a little bit more landing shadow under her foot here, so I've come over to this multiply layer and to the backdrop, and I'm just going to add that in. And that hasn't quite darkened it enough for me, so I'm going to see if there's some shadow from her layer that I like better. I'm still seeing that this is just a little bit too bright. This wood is too bright. So I'm going to go ahead, increase the brush size, and brush on that multiply layer even more. And darken that wood up even more. All right, let's back up and see how we like that now. Okay, I think what I'm going to do, and this is why I'm happy that I have shot this on a similar background, I'm going to use some of the wood layer that she was actually sitting on to see if I can get these shadows to look a little more pleasing, a little less harsh. So I'm on her layer. I'm going to bring my opacity down to about 30, flow down to about 30 so I can build this. And I'm going to add in from her layer with the white brush, the wood from her photo. I've gone a little too far there. The blanket came into that, the blanket from her original photo. Okay, I'm just going to tap in here. Okay, and now we've gotten a little too much here, so I'm just going to flip over and lower my brush size and take that out of there. Okay, let's zoom out. And that is so much better. I think I'll also add a little bit more behind her. So back to the white, back to the big brush, increase the brush size, and just tap in ever so slightly. And the boards don't go the same way because I had her on an angle, so I'm going to have to be careful. If I'm going to do that, I might have to come back in and fix those lines, and I don't really want to do that, so I'm going to just remove where those lines are showing. Okay. Beautiful. I like this. I think that in here now looks a little bit bright, so I'm just going to use that multiply layer, and I'm going to go over to the to the white palette and just darken that in a bit, that everything sort of matches. Beauty. Okay, now let's talk about adding some different elements to this. If you really want to, you could add in a light here in this lamp, and I think I will do that. I'm going to click on this layer, and I'm going to go to Filter, Render, Lens Flare. Oh, this might not work on that. Let's just Control E to merge these two layers, and now I can come in and render, lens flare, and you can move this anywhere you like, and I'm going to put it in this lamp, and the brightness I'm going to turn down, and I've just added a bit of light to this lamp. Now I think that I don't want this flare type coming out from the side, so I'm just going to click my history brush tool and use my history brush. Again, there's lots of different ways you could do this. You could have added this on a different layer if you wanted to. This is just a kind of quick way to go about this. Okay, so now I've added light into this lamp, and if I want it a little bit warmer tone, I can always change that. I could add a layer. I can pick a warm tone. Let's come down in here, and then I'm going to add that to the entire scene, and then I'm going to click Alt, Layer Mask, Hue. Let's play around. Well, I can't see because I have it hidden, but what I'm going to do is come back in and paint on a color change. I'm going to turn this all the way up to 100%. I'm painting on a color change to that lamp. So that's a little harsh, and that's no problem. I can turn it down on the opacity here, and I've warmed it up, and I think I'm much happier with that warmer tone. Now you can add writing here or whatever you want. That's completely up to you. I think that I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to add some sparkles. And then I'm just going to end this so this tutorial doesn't wind up being 75 minutes long. But you could add more of these lights if you like, anything you want. Your imagination is the limit here. So I just picked up some free sparkle brushes on the internet, and I think they're so much fun and whimsical, and we can kind of get as whimsical as we like with Christmas time. There's really no reason to pull it back. And so I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to add some whimsy to this image. I've got a warm tone chosen for this brush, and I'm just going to go ahead and tap it in there. And if I don't like it, which I don't right now, that's maybe a little bit much, I don't like the shape, I can go up in the history panel, or I could throw this in the trash, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to try a different brush here. And turn the size down. Maybe the size is a little big. And just tap it in there, but it kind of looks like she's now breathing sparkles. These don't always work on the first go. It's just a little bit of playing around, and that's okay. I'm gonna go to soft light here and see what that looks like. Maybe it just looks a little messy. The screen, I like that. Maybe I'll just turn it down a little bit. And maybe I don't love this. Maybe I don't need to add any sparkles at all. I think I probably would. I'm gonna just delete this layer because it's not fantastic just yet. Let me turn this down and see what it looks like to just add some sparkles around her. And then I can erase them off of her face and outfit. And then go to screen and turn the opacity down. And that's just a little bit of magic right around her. Again, this is up to you. You don't have to add anything at all. You can just do what you like and leave it. You could leave it like this if you want to. Completely up to you. I'm not going to play with this much further. I don't want to bore you to tears. I'm personally going to leave this as it is. I like it, and we're going to go with this one. And I may allow or may invite the parents to add some writing in here, and this could become a Christmas card or a postcard for them. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and feel free to send a note with any questions. Thank you so much.